you hear?
Oh, now I
Can you hear
can.
it for the headphones? Okay.
Now I can.
Good. All right. I'm going to turn this light off because it makes a hum.
Okay.
Okay. Say something.
That makes a hum too.
What would you think if you received an invitation to attend something called a Techno Cosmic Wedding? Would you be curious? Avoidant? Undecided? What if it was framed as a postmodern rave-inspired event where your whole self was welcome? How would you feel then? This is Shame Piñata. I'm Colleen Thomas. Welcome to Shame Piñata, where we talk about creating rites of passage for real-life transitions. So you're invited. You're retroactively invited to attend my wedding. And joining us today to help me bring you into the scene, into the moment, is my amazing husband, Rodrigo. We're going to tell you about how this unusual ceremony came to be, why it was modeled on an event called the Techno Cosmic Mass, and how it welcomes something you don't normally see at a wedding: grief. We're going to share the story in two parts. Today, we'll fill you in on the who, how, and why, and take you through the planning phase, which, as you know, is really the richest part of any intentional event. Then, next time, you'll hear how it all turned out, including the bumpy ride that led to the actual wedding day. So here's the story. A long time ago, I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area to attend graduate school in spirituality. The school I attended was called the University of Creation Spirituality, and it was run by theologian Matthew Fox. You may know of Matthew through his many books. He's actually authored 40 books over the past 50 years. Some titles that might sound familiar are Original Blessing, The Coming of the Cosmic Christ, and One River, Many Wells. Like several other students at the school, I felt that the universe had somehow called me out to complete that very program. And one of the pieces that spoke to me the most was an event Matthew and his team regularly hosted called the Techno Cosmic Mass. Now, unknown to me, Rodrigo was also attending the Techno Cosmic Mass, which at that time was held in the historic Sweets Ballroom in downtown Oakland. This was before we met, like way before we met. Here he is, helping me describe it.
Techno Cosmic Mass was kind of a multimedia mass held in a huge ballroom in Oakland when I went to it. You would walk in, there was a lot of screens showing a lot of different spiritual designs and images and music. Very low lights. It was kind of like a rave, almost, the atmosphere. Not that I've really been to a rave, but what I imagine one to be like. And then there were altars in the big ballroom you could walk around to. And then when it would start, they would go through a whole sort of ceremony and kind of a 4 movements. Mm-hmm. But some of them were very upbeat and had like dancing and were kind of like a rave, and some were very introspective and dark. It was pretty unique. It was pretty cool.
And we were going at the same time, and we didn't know each other then.
Right.
Yep, and I was volunteering at a lot of them. In fact, when I first came out to check out the University of Creation Spirituality, I just spent a weekend here in Oakland, and I just wanted to hang out at the school as much as I could to see what it was about and what the people were like, and if it was a place I wanted to study. And so I helped with the mass because that was going on over the weekend. And they asked me which of the 4 elemental altars, which element would you want to do? They let me design an altar. And immediately I said water because I felt like the ocean had been calling me out to California. I built this beautiful altar. I had the whole day to build it, and all this big room of stuff. It was like multi-layered, different heights. I found a big bowl, a big silver kitchen type bowl that had a really tall, clear glass glued into it. I don't know why it was glued into it, but I put a candle, like a taper candle
right for
inside
that.
there. Yeah. And then I filled the bowl with water, and then the candle was inside the glass, and it burned down throughout the night. So it was eventually under the water. It was really meaningful to me, and it was a signal that this was a place I definitely wanted to come and study. And so I did. And I loved the school, and I loved my classmates, and I loved my teachers, and I had an amazing time. And then over the years, everything kind of faded away. I'm sad to say that the school actually closed shortly after I left. The masses continued for a while, but then they stopped too. And then many years later, I met Rodrigo through a completely different community, and we did all the things. We dated and moved in together, and we're not going to get married, and then changed our minds. But when it came to the wedding planning, it was a little bit difficult.
Well, our spiritualities are different. And I think I was pretty sure I didn't want something very conventional. And I think you didn't either, is my guess. I'm not sure.
We did a lot of thinking and talking about that, about traditions. Like, what are the wedding traditions? Why are they there?
Right.
What do we want about them? Because I think it's always fine to pull them in if they're meaningful, right?
Sure.
If it's not just, oh, well, we should.
I think that's what we were trying to find, is something that was meaningful to both of us.
Yeah, and we couldn't. We hadn't. We were in limbo, as I recall. And then we went that night to, well, as luck would have it, or as synchronicity would have it, they started doing the masses again right then, because they had stopped.
Right. They hadn't done them in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were
just
over.
Again.
Yeah, they were just out of the blue. They started, and I saw the flyer with that old art they used to use with the event flyer, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's going to be in Oakland, not at Sweet's Ballroom, but in Oakland.
Right.
And we went, and Matt was there, and he was welcoming people from all the different faiths, which was one of my favorite parts, getting to represent for my underdog faith, and then getting to be welcomed in, and then the dancing, and that I just remember we were dancing. It might have been the Via Creativa, the Via Transformativa dance. I think it was toward the end of the night, and just looking over at you and being like, I want this for our wedding, and you were like, yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, we finally found something. We were both like a big yes to it.
Totally.
Yeah,
it's like what?
Yeah,
totally.
And what?
That was good to find the big yes.
Yeah. And looking back at it from now, what was the yes to you?
It just felt right. It just felt aligned, and it felt like it wasn't even a very conscious thing. It was just a yes, just like from my gut.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I definitely had that perfectly right, and really excited to hear that it felt that way to you too, because sometimes we're not on the same page. So I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah, definitely we're on the same page. And for me, it had always been like I'm super into bringing the body into worship and to ritual, and remembering we have bodies, and coming into the bodies, and dancing with the body, and all of the bringing in the chakras, and the colors, and the lights, and the celebration, and the grieving that's in the body too, like the whole way that it's so embodied and so fun. Yeah.
And it had like elements of what felt like a wedding, like bringing a whole bunch of people together and doing ritual and ceremony, but it was like a different way of doing it.
And it felt sort of divinely guided, because, like we said, they came up with a Techno Cosmic. They started doing the Cosmic Mass again out of the blue from our perspective. And then we jumped in and started volunteering with the Cosmic Mass crew for about 6 months to learn how to do it.
Exactly.
And then pretty much right after we had our wedding, they stopped again. They stopped doing the masses again. So we got in this tiny little window, which was like maybe 9 months or a year or something. They were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, you might be wondering what actually happens at a Techno Cosmic Mass and why we would want to use it as the foundation for our wedding. Bear with us as we take you into a bit of the spiritual framework behind the event. So in creation spirituality, there are 4 tivas, as we call them affectionately. There are 4 paths of creation spirituality. There is the via positiva, which is joy, awe, and wonder. And the via negativa, which is about darkness and letting go and grieving. The via creativa, which is about we are creative beings, creative as the creator is divine, right? Mm-hmm. And then via transformativa, which is where we ready ourselves to return to the world as spiritual warriors. That's how I always think about it.
Transform,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And in the Mass, traditionally, my experience was that they did a trance dance, a joy dance during the via positiva, and some kind of group grieving during the negativa. Mm-hmm. And then they did the Eucharist during the creativa, right. The actual taking of the bread and the body of Christ. Okay. And then the transformativa was another trance dance.
Okay, to end it.
Yeah, to prepare yourself to go out in the world and be a warrior for social justice.
Right.
So I remember when we were planning the wedding, I was really enamored with the idea of having a dance for the positiva because I really loved having the trance dance.
Right.
And then grieving for negativa. But then instead of the Eucharist, we wanted to come up with something non-Eucharisty to do there. So we came up with honoring the cosmos. It kind of feels to me like at the Mass, the Techno Cosmic Mass, a big part of the focus was on the Eucharist, because it's a Mass, right? So, but yet for us, we realized that the transformativa might be a really good place for the wedding ceremony itself.
Yeah. I mean, that was what I thought was our sort of our focus in terms of the wedding itself was the transformation of being 2 people that weren't wedded to 2 people that were wedded.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for me, transformativa was kind of a no-brainer because it's like, it's a transformation. So we have to have the wedding and the transformativa. Yeah. And the dancing, it was interesting because in a lot of weddings, the dancing comes like afterwards, and it's like the reception, and it's not part of the wedding. Mm-hmm. So I liked that we had it as part of the wedding ceremony, that people were dancing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we really liked that about that. And then I think the negativa was we sort of knew that was kind of going to be like the most unusual thing to have in a wedding.
Yes. My mom was not happy. To say the least.
What did she, do you remember what she said?
Oh, no, I don't. I remember talking to her more about the song that we had our really good friend Doris sing before, because she had that wonderful album and we wanted to incorporate her music into the day, and we listened to it, and she had a song called I Am Not Afraid that I think you were like, or I don't forget which one of us was like, we need this right before we get married, because it's this song about I am not afraid. I am so afraid, but I'm not afraid, but I am so afraid. Yeah. It was such a beautiful song, and I remember playing it or telling my mom about it, I think, on it and play it for her, and she was like, oh, no.
Oh.
She was like trying not to put her foot down about anything, I think, throughout the year. I was telling her plans for the wedding, and then she had to with that. She was like, that is a bad idea.
For some reason, I had the story flipped in my head that she was saying that about the negativa.
I don't remember.
About having the negativa. I think she was pretty much also against having the negativa.
She,
from what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty traditional.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a weird thing to have people crying at a wedding on purpose.
Yeah.
A communal grieving ceremony in general might be something you're not used to experiencing, but imagine it as a wedding. We actually had a mix of folks at the event, some of whom were more traditional and weren't really sure what to do, but kind of went with it, and others who actually had a lot of experience in holding space for deep emotions in a group setting. And a lot of this latter group were from Rodrigo's work community, a nonprofit called Challenge Day.
It's interesting because I think part of the reason that I felt more sort of comfortable with that was because I had gone through a lot of Challenge Day stuff. So, which is kind of an emotional workshop that I did, and then I worked at for many years, and there was kind of a lot of that sort of going into your feelings and being okay with that and doing it in kind of like a group setting, and
Yeah.
so I felt a lot more comfortable with that than much more than I would have had I not gone through that sort of experience.
Yeah.
And kind of like seeing not seeing it as a kind of a negative thing, but as a kind of a healing thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And you'd been to the masses too, where that was also part of like, really, really presencing the destruction of the planet or the destruction of the rainforests or whatever the focus was that night at the mass. Like really all the stuff that we know is happening in the world, but we don't want to think about, becoming really focused on it and aware of it and allowing the pain of it to really become present and allowing ourselves to grieve the things that we try to not look at in community. I mean, that's not a normal experience, a day-to-day experience in the U.S. So, like getting comfortable with that, learning what that is, and that it might be weird, it might feel weird, but yet going through it, especially in community, can be very healing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very NorCal wedding.
Yeah, absolutely.
California wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the also the altars were important. Creating the altars.
You didn't really want the altars, though. You didn't really care about the altars.
Yeah, I guess. I don't remember.
You were like, that's your thing.
Was it really?
Yeah. But that was okay because I was excited. Yeah, so at the Mass, if you walked into the Techno Cosmic Mass, you would see 2 or maybe 3 really big projection screens. And then at least 4 really big altars at the 4 directions. And sometimes they would be set up to honor the 4 directions, earth, air, fire, and water, the elements. And sometimes they were themed in some way, depending on the theme of the Mass. But we decided that we wanted to honor relationship in its various forms. And so we decided to have 5 altars. So we had a self altar, like love of self, and then a friendship altar, love of friendship, and a romance altar for romantic love, and a family altar for family love, and then an earth altar for honoring the earth.
Right.
And we also had a moon lodge because that was my thing. And I was really excited about the altars because I wanted them to be very interactive. So they were kind of like little sets, almost like at a play. So we wanted the self altar to have a beautiful mirror where people could sit in front of the mirror and look at themselves. And this friendship altar was meant to look like a front porch with a checker set and rocking chairs. And then the romance altar we set up at a fireplace, which was in the venue. Yeah, at the venue there was a fireplace, and so we set the romance altar up in front of the fireplace with chocolate boxes and
pillows.
Yeah,
and pillows.
And then the family altar was the richest. It was beautiful. Mm. It was all of these beautiful ancestor items, and your father's paintings ended up there. Mm-hmm. And we had some Day of the Dead coloring books. It was the most, I think, interactive one. Mm-hmm. People really liked it. They really gravitated toward it. And then the earth altar was sort of just a very big house plant with the globe or something. It wasn't very impressive, but they were all meant to be very interactive and very, and so that people could be at the event and they could also kind of wander by and interact with the altars.
Like at the Mass.
Like at the Mass. But even more interactive than at the Mass. At the Mass, it's kind of like you look at them and they're really pretty and interesting, but you don't really do anything at them.
Right. Yeah. You really wanted to sort of have it there as sort of something that people that came to the wedding sort of interacted with and participated in.
Yeah.
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 I think I was thinking it was your thing because there was so much to organize.
I know.
And I just felt overwhelmed. I was like, I can't do altars on top of everything else. I'm sorry. It's like it's gonna. If you want it, you're welcome to do it. So sorry about that, but I just didn't have the bandwidth. I mean, we had, along with all of the regular sort of wedding things, we also had kind of to put on this sort of multimedia presentation of like big screens and provide our own sound system.
Yeah. So suffice to say, we were planning a big event. It was multimedia. It had trance dancing. It had interactive altars. And it was a wedding. So we took our time and we were intentional about it. What was your experience of the planning time?
Of the planning.
Which was a huge part of it.
Yeah. Well, I think we went into it wanting to be very comprehensive and very careful about every detail. And I think we were. So that was really nice. And very conscious and sort of wanting the wedding to be part of sort of creating community and the planning to be creating community.
Yeah.
And it felt like very much like us doing something together.
Yeah.
And, we also had like our spreadsheet with like 25 tabs or something like that. Yeah. Very organized.
Yes. Yeah. And then toward the end, I remember you found some way to draw the room. You created diagrams of exactly, because at the end of it, at the end of the planning, we sort of reached the point of needing to turn it over to our
team. Yeah.
To our team. So there was this like process of like making sure they really got it and we really got all our thoughts and we're really sure and how do we convey this to them? And so that's where you were doing the diagrams of like, this is how we want the chairs at this point, and then we're going to change to this, and then it's going to be like this, because it was an event.
Mm-hmm. It was.
It was a whole production.
Yeah. And we had to like move chairs in and move chairs out and because it was just one big room and we did everything in that room, from just having it way open for all the dancing to having the ceremony with chairs in there, and everything had to sort of be coordinated. And we were very clear from, I think, very near the beginning that we wanted to be just present for the wedding. And so we didn't want to be the person sort of like worried about directing things and moving things around and making sure things went right. So I think we sort of made it, I think it was a great decision to, okay, we're going to organize everything. We're going to explain it to our team as clearly as possible, and then we're going to just let go. Yeah. And if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't and something goes totally different, then that's just the way it's going to be, because we just want to be present for it.
Yeah. Thinking back now, I'm not even sure where we got the sage wisdom to let go of the details on the wedding day, but it turned out to be great advice. Join us again next time to hear how the big day went. I really hope you can make it back, because I'm excited to tell you how it all unfolded, and as I mentioned, the bumps that came up along the way. If you'd like to know more about creation spirituality, check out MatthewFox.org. For a sneak peek into the Negativa section of our wedding, see Tria Wen's Washington Post article. Find both links in the show notes. Our music is by Terry Hughes. Find us on YouTube, IG, and X at Shame Piñata. Reach us through our website, shamepiñata.com, and subscribe to the show on your favorite player. I'm Colleen Thomas. Thanks for listening. P.S. You can get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Check out the show notes for your promo code and get started podcasting today.